The defense lawyer's voice was dripping with scorn. Your Honor, the claimant, Ms. Vance, is conducting a legal strategy suitable for a soap opera. She's an archivist, not a lawyer. The sound of harsh laughter from the husband, Arthur, followed. Then the calm, deep voice of the wife, Lena, cut through the noise. Counsel, my entire legal strategy is based on a federal mandate I have upheld for the last 4 years. The sharp, shocking sound of an FBI badge being slammed onto the podium was a climax, followed by the terrifying realization of the husband. The FBI was not just in the room. They were sitting across the table from him. The setting was a high-ceilinged, grand New York family court, currently hosting the divorce proceedings of one of the city's most affluent couples. Lena Vance, a woman of dark complexion in her late 30s, sat alone at the claimant's table. She was representing herself, a fact that her soon-to-be ex-husband, Arthur Vance, a notoriously aggressive hedge fund manager, found hilarious. Arthur, a man who believed money solved all problems, was flanked by 3 high-powered, silk-suited corporate lawyers, led by the ruthless Marcus Sterling. Lena's quiet demeanor and simple, dark dress were in stark contrast to the opulence and arrogance radiating from Arthur's side. As Judge Harrison called the case, Arthur leaned over to Sterling, smiling wide. She's reading from flashcards, Marcus. She gave up her career to archive my life. Now she wants to fight the biggest legal firm in New York with a pamphlet from the library. Will be done by lunch. The confrontation began with Sterling's opening statement, which was designed to ridicule Lena. Your Honor, the petitioner has elected to represent herself, which is her right. However, her claim to half of Mr. Vance's premarital investment accounts is based on a flimsy assertion of marital contribution. She was an archivist. She archived things. Mr. Vance built a financial empire. Her strategy is embarrassing. The injustice was immediate and clear. Sterling's intentional public humiliation aimed to diminish Lena's worth and legal legitimacy. The victim silently hurt. Lena felt the cold, familiar sting of being dismissed. Her entire intellectual contribution to the marriage reduced to a joke about filing cabinets. The ominous hint of future reversal was a file Lena held, a single, thin, black folder labeled Project Chimera, which contained documents the entire legal team believed were destroyed years ago. Fresh, unique opening style. Focus on perceived legal incompetence of the wife versus the absolute, silent power she actually wielded. Judge Harrison then invited Lena to present her opening statement. She stood slowly, adjusting the microphone, her eyes meeting Arthur's smug gaze for a long moment before turning to the judge. Your Honor, Counsel Sterling is correct. I am not a lawyer. My field is document management, archival integrity, and information security. Lena began, her voice calm and clear. Mr. Vance's firm, Vance Capital, is currently valued at $$800 million. Counsel argues this is premarital. I argue that the firm is founded on 2 core principles: fraud and document forgery. Arthur burst out laughing, loud enough to stop the proceeding. See, Your Honor, she's losing it. Conspiracy theories. She watched too many legal dramas. Sterling then stood up, adopting a tone of pity. Objection, Your Honor. The claimant's statements are baseless, inflammatory, and clearly designed to maliciously damage my client's reputation outside the scope of this divorce. Judge Harrison sustained the objection, warning Lena to stick to the facts of the marital estate. The wrongdoers are loud, arrogant, confident. Arthur and his legal team continue to scoff, confident that Lena was merely bluffing. Lena suffered emotionally. The humiliation was profound, being reduced to a hysterical wife making desperate claims. She knew the way of her claim, an emotional cost of holding the truth for so long. Must include one specific, nonverbal act of dignity or kindness from a protagonist despite the mistreatment, instead of reacting to the laughter or the objection. Lena simply reached into her briefcase and pulled out a small, portable data projector. She placed it on her table, aimed at the courtroom wall, and with a silent click, displayed a federal regulation code pertaining to emergency asset seizure protocols. This small, nonverbal act of dignity was her quiet promise that she would endure the abuse but use her network to enforce institutional consequence. The sight of a legal code, though seemingly irrelevant, caused a sudden, cold silence among the court observers. The tension surged as Sterling whispered urgently to Arthur, "That's an FBI code. What is she playing at? She can't subpoena the FBI. Lena ignored them and addressed the judge. Your Honor, I will now present Exhibit A, which details the original funding structure for Vance Capital. Counsel claims a $50 million startup capital came from Arthur's premarital inheritance. I contend that the money was, in fact, illegally diverted from a federal aid program established for disadvantaged New York communities. Arthur surged his feet, enraged. You are lying. That's a direct slander. A low-status relative intervened. A young clerk, Sarah Jenkins, who had been quietly taking notes, immediately pushed a small, secured phone toward the judge, signaling an incoming secure call. Sarah's gesture was an attempt to provide the judge with an official basis for the judge to enforce order, but she instantly retreated when Arthur pointed a furious finger at her. Arthur pointed a furious finger at the clerk. You are violating court protocol. Get that phone away from the bench. Arthur successfully silenced a low-status intervention. A high-status character starts paying attention. Chief Judge Thompson, alerted by the unusual interruption and the mention of federal aid program over the internal court communications network, stepped into the viewing gallery unnoticed. Thompson immediately accessed the flight's live cockpit camera feed to see who was using the chairman's credentials. COO David Lee started paying attention. The public humiliation of Lena was complete. Arthur was now shouting abuse at her, calling her a delusional gold digger, while the judge struggled to regain order. The injustice was a total disregard for the sanctity of the courtroom and the casual willingness of the wealthy to purchase justice. Lena calmly pressed a button on her projector. The projected text on the wall changed from a federal regulation code to a blurred corporate logo, Vance Capital. Captain Thorne, I am informing you that you are currently delaying a flight and placing this company in breach of its regulatory schedule, Elijah stated, his voice now purely corporate and devoid of personal feeling. You are about to suffer the consequences of violating a zero-tolerance code for passenger harassment. Thorne laughed again, clinging to his cockpit authority. Code? I am the captain. I make the codes up here. He saw the first ground security personnel approaching the plane. Just before the shocking reveal, we want to take a quick moment to thank you for your support, love, and kindness. We wouldn't have come this far without you. Subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue to bring you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city and country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's get back to the story. Arthur stood triumphant, convinced he had broken Lena and silenced her claims. Judge, I demand this case be dismissed and she pays our legal fees. She's wasting everyone's time. Lena finally picked up her secured satellite phone. She placed it next to the microphone and pressed play on a pre-recorded audio file. The courtroom instantly filled with Arthur's own voice, captured years ago, clearly discussing a wire transfer of $50 million to a shell company used to illegally divert the federal aid money. Lena looked directly at the judge. Your Honor, my opening statement is concluded. I have established my claim. I now move for the immediate arrest of the defendant, Arthur Vance. The sound of Arthur's voice confessing to federal fraud, amplified through the courtroom speakers, was deafening. The entire room, Arthur, his lawyers, the court observers, and even the staff, was frozen in stunned silence. Arthur's face was no longer arrogant. It was a mask of sheer, paralyzing horror. Judge Harrison, who had just ended a secure call on his bench phone, finally slammed his gavel down, the sound echoing the finality of the revelation. Order in this court, the judge commanded. He then looked down at Lena, his eyes holding a profound respect. Ms. Vance, that audio recording appears to be evidence of felony. Before I rule on your motion for arrest, the court requires absolute clarity regarding your status. Lena finally opened a thin black folder, labeled Project Chimera. She didn't stand. She simply spoke, her voice radiating quiet, terrifying authority. Your Honor, for the past 4 years, I have not been a corporate archivist or merely a housewife or even a victim. My initial work archiving Arthur's finances led me to discover the massive federal aid fraud he was attempting. I immediately reported it. She paused, allowing the tension to build. Arthur could only stare at her, mouth agape, as his legal team desperately scrambled to whisper useless advice. I was subsequently recruited and trained by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, Financial Crimes Division, to go undercover. My title, Your Honor, is Special Operations Analyst, and my code name for the specific case, dealing with Arthur's diverted federal funds in New York, was Chimera. Lena then pulled out her official FBI identification badge and placed it onto the podium next to the microphone. I did not need a lawyer, Your Honor, because I have been working under the direct guidance of the federal prosecutor's office. My entire legal strategy in this divorce was merely the execution of a 4-year-long court-sanctioned financial surveillance operation designed to expose Arthur's complete empire. The underestimated person is revealed as powerful. Arthur Vance slumped in his seat, his entire body going limp as the total realization hit him. His wife didn't want a divorce. She was an undercover agent who had used their marriage as the perfect cover to gather evidence for a federal takedown. The shock was absolute. His reign of wealth and fraud had been dismantled by the woman he constantly mocked and belittled. Judge Harrison looked past the defense table, where Marcus Sterling and his team were now frantically packing their bags, preparing to resign from the case before they could be implicated. The chief judge in the gallery nodded once to Judge Harrison, confirming the external authorization. Given the evidence presented and the verified status of Ms. Lena Vance as an FBI Special Operations Analyst, this court moves immediately to the criminal docket. Judge Harrison announced, his gavel striking the wood hard. Bailiff, execute the immediate motion for the arrest of Arthur Vance, pending federal investigation for fraud, larceny, and obstruction of justice. The courtroom doors opened, and 2 uniformed FBI agents entered. They moved past the silent defense team, straight to Arthur Vance. The wrongdoers go silent. Arthur's face was wet with tears of pure terror and regret. Lena, please, don't do this. I'll give you everything. Half, all of it, he sobbed, reaching a hand out to her. Lena didn't look at him. She spoke only to the agents. He is resisting. Cuff him and read him his rights. As Arthur was dragged away, stripped of his power, his freedom, and his reputation in the eyes of everyone watching, his humiliation was complete. His arrogance collapsed. He was reduced from an $800 million titan to a common criminal, exposed by the quiet competence of a woman he thought was a simple filing clerk. The audience witnesses a reversal, instant karma. Lena watched Arthur leave the courtroom, the intense focus of 4 years of secrecy and pain finally easing. She felt exhausted, but profoundly victorious. A moment later, Chief Judge Thompson approached her, offering a sincere handshake and commendation for her courage. Later that afternoon, Lena met with her FBI field supervisor in a quiet office overlooking the New York skyline. Her personal life was shattered, but her professional career had soared. She received a formal commendation for her bravery and was granted full control of the marital assets that were not tainted by fraud, ensuring her financial stability. More importantly, the funds Arthur had illegally diverted were recovered and immediately rerouted to the disadvantaged communities in New York they were originally intended to help. Lena had restored dignity. She looked out at the city, feeling a deep, quiet strength. Her life had improved, and she had enacted deep reflection. She had shown the world, and most importantly herself, that silent strength and dedication to justice are the ultimate forms of power. She thought, they underestimated the wrong person. Cruelty exposes itself. Lena walked away from the marriage not with settlement, but with the moral clarity of having upheld the law and stopped a criminal, proving that true worth has nothing to do with a bank account.